Hey everybody, I'm John and this is Blind Whiskey Reviews. Hey everybody, and thank you so much for joining me today here on Blind Whiskey Reviews, the most honest reviews on YouTube. As always, if you're liking the videos, don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below and click the bell notification so that way you'll know every time I'm uploading a new video and every time I'm starting a new live stream. Today we're reviewing the Rebel Yell Small Batch. Now this is their bottom shelf expression. This whiskey goes for $10, so it's definitely a budget pour. And so I'm excited to let you guys know what I think in the review. So let's jump back in time before I knew what I was drinking and get to the review. All right, everybody, let's get into the whiskey. This one is a very light golden color. Legs are pretty, it's sticking to the glass decent. Let's get to the nose. I mean, on this one, the first and the last thing you smell is this big peanut character. If you dig a little harder, you can find some maybe like sweet fruity notes back there, but it is just overwhelmingly this peanut. So you can get a little bit more aroma coming out of this thing. Yeah, there's a few light fruity notes hiding back there. Little apple. Touch of spice. It's an interesting nose, and like I said, it's very, at this point, dominated by this nutty character. So I'm very curious to see how it comes across on the palate. So let's not waste any more time and get to it. Cheers. So there's definitely a lot of that nutty character still on the palate. Not quite as dominant as it is on the nose. Definitely want to get another taste here. But first impressions, this is a very light whiskey, not high proof. Very low on the intensity of the flavor. The flavors are there, but yeah, it's pretty weak and watered down. So I'm thinking this is a much lower proof whiskey. Very thin on the mouthfeel. You're not left with much lingering flavor on the finish. So let's get another taste and see what we can dig out of here. Yeah, not a ton going on. I mean, what's here is decent. It's perfectly drinkable, but flavor-wise, there's just not a lot going on. You're getting this, it's very similar to what I said on the nose. There's a lot of this big nut character, peanut specifically. There is some lighter fruits kind of dancing around there, bringing you a little bit of that sweetness. Very thin touch of spice on the back. You are left with a touch of bitterness, so there's a little bit of an oaky quality to it. Very slight. Doesn't taste young by any stretch, so it's probably in that mid-range of ages, 6 years, 7 years. I mean, it does have the kind of profile of a Jim Beam whiskey, although I couldn't tell you which one this might be. It's just so low proof, it feels like anyways. Let's give one more taste. Yeah, I can't imagine this is much over 80, 85 proof. Very weak, very thin. Like I said, a little bit of flavor that doesn't last very long. What's there isn't bad, but it's just not super complex, not overly interesting. Like I said, it tastes like a basic kind of Jim Beam product almost. Yeah, there's not a lot going on here. I think this one suffers from being watered down too much, diluted too much. You know, as I've mentioned many, many times on this channel, and I will continue to mention, I think a lot of distilleries do a disservice to whiskey when they sit here and put a lot of water in it to either spread the product out or make it, you know, on some ends, I think it's them trying to make it more approachable for people that aren't into the higher proof whiskeys, but I think it really just suffers on the flavor department. The flavors are not intense enough, not enough complexity. So for me, I said there's nothing wrong with this whiskey. It's perfectly drinkable, but I'm going to have to give this a 76. Right in that average range whiskey. It's good, it's drinkable, have no problem enjoying this whiskey, but you know, it's not something I'd be seeking out. So let us find out what it is. Is it Jim Beam? Oh, it's not. This is the Rebel Yell Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. All right. I think this is the first time I've ever had the standard release Rebel Yell, so I'm glad we finally got into this one. I've had this bottle for a minute, so let me go grab the bottle and we'll talk about it a little bit more. All right, we just finished our review of Rebel Yell Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. This is bottled at a measly 40% alcohol, 80 proof. And, you know, Rebel Yell is a pretty storied brand that if you go back, has been distilled at several different places, and I don't think anybody really knows where they're distilling this product now, but we do know that it is a wheated mash bill, and I would say for a budget pour, being as this pour comes in, I bought this bottle for $9.99. I think it's pretty decent. I think it falls right in line with a lot of the other decent budget pours like Jim Beam or any of the others. Nothing fantastic about it, but it's perfectly drinkable. Certainly isn't something that I would be seeking out and buying more of, but I'm glad to have been able to try it. This is my first time actually trying the 80 proof version of this whiskey. I have tried the single barrel, which is pretty good. I don't know if I like the price of that whiskey, as it is, I believe, like about $60 to $80, depending where you find it. But for a $10 whiskey, I'm not complaining. So if you need a good budget pour, I would definitely say if you see this one out there to grab it. I have seen the pricing on this be a bit higher. I've seen it maybe go up to like $18, which, you know, I would say there's other whiskeys that are as good at around the $10 price point. So definitely no reason to pay $18 for this, but for $10, I'm not complaining. It's a decent whiskey, and you get what you pay for, certainly when it comes to some of these whiskeys, and you know what you're getting into when you buy a whiskey that's 80 proof. So this whiskey is not intended to give you a bunch of robust flavor. It's intended to be what it is, a budget pour to give you some alcohol with some, you know, decent flavor at a low proof. So if you want to use a whiskey to mix or do something like that you don't want a lot of high proof, or you don't really want to taste a lot of this complexity from the whiskey, not a bad option. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Have you tried Rebel Yell? And if so, what did you think? And let me know also, what is your favorite budget pour? Let's say at $10, 10 to 15. What is your favorite budget pour? Is it Jim Beam, Rebel Yell? You know, there's several options out there in that $10 price point. So let me know what your favorite is in the comments down below. As always, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at blind_reviews. You can send me an email at blindwhiskeyreviews@gmail.com. And until next time, cheers.